Colorado's home. It's where we raise our kids, work hard, and pass our values on to the next generation. I'm Teddy Collins, lifelong Republican, father of 2 daughters, podcaster sharing conservative values across our state, and the owner of one of the largest family-owned and operated firearms businesses in the state of Colorado. Everything I do is about protecting our families and the Colorado we're leaving for our kids. Parents, not government, should raise their children. That means protecting girls' sports, girls' spaces, and making schools hard targets to keep our children safe. I've spent over 15 years training responsible gun owners and defending the Second Amendment. I serve as the Vice President of Industry for the Colorado State Shooting Association. You can learn more about my work and background defending your rights at collinsforcolorado.com.
Welcome to Wayne's World, rising above the noise and confusion.
It's Wayne's Word.
Oh.
Welcome, Teddy Collins, to Wayne's Word. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? You were running for Senate District 4 here in Colorado. Tell me a little bit about the district and why you want to run for it.
So Senate District 4 is one of the largest Senate districts in the state of Colorado, geographically speaking. It makes up 8 counties, 8 large counties. So I'll name them off. We've got Southern Douglas County. We've got rural Jeffco. We've got Park, Lake, Chaffee, Custer, Teller, Fremont. I don't think I forgot one there.
Solidly red, though.
It went 68% for Republicans last time. Mark Baisley currently holds that seat. I'm lucky to have his endorsement in this race. He's going to be running against Hickenlooper. Well, going through a primary right now, but hopefully
for the United States Senate.
Yeah, for U.S. Senate. He's going to get that. He's running for the big S instead of the little S.
So your race is a primary race. That's all you really
essentially
have to
a primary.
about. And who are you running against?
I have 2 opponents. I have one opponent who was a former aide for Greg Lopez, one of Greg Lopez's people, and I have another opponent that recently moved from out of state into the state about 6 months to a year ago, from what I understand. Don't know much about them. Haven't met them yet.
Tell us about your background. Where'd you grow up, and how did you grow up? What formed who you are today, Ted?
So I actually grew up in rural Texas. I moved out here about a decade ago. So I grew up in the northern Houston area in Conroe, and then via Spring in the Woodlands at one point, all around that state. And I moved out here about 10 years ago after the birth of my first daughter. I had my second daughter here though, and I have a son on the way due in March. So I have anchor babies here in Colorado. We'll call it that.
Right on.
We'll call it that.
That ought to keep you safe, because otherwise they're just going to come drag you out of your church or your kid's school.
I know. That's what I hear. The natives are dangerous here. I hear they're very unruly and unresty.
When you're not running for public office, you have a gun store, correct?
Correct. I own one of the largest family-owned and operated stores in the state. So we specialize in the hard to find, but we do have something for every man, including the common man. I have guns that range from $200 to $25,000, depending on what you're looking for, including about 28 exclusive brands, either for the state or the city of Colorado Springs.
So I certainly don't have to wonder where you stand on Second Amendment rights.
Oh, no, I'm all for taking everyone's rights. No, just kidding. Yeah. Of course not. Of course not.
Well, they've certainly been taken in Colorado in the last decade.
Yeah, they have.
This used to be I remember when Virginia was, everybody had a gun.
Yeah.
Even
it used to be a solid red state. It was the capital of the South. I mean, it's,
Yeah, you had your Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., suburban crowd, and even there, that wasn't terribly anti-gun. I remember back in the 80s and 90s when carjackings were just a common occurrence in Washington, D.C.
Sure. Now we're seeing that here.
Right. And you couldn't tell if you live in Metro D.C., you can't really tell whether you're in Virginia or D.C. I mean,
Maryland.
You cross a bridge, right, but it's all one big metropolitan glob.
Exactly.
Why were all these carjackings taking place in D.C., but not in the rest of the city? D.C. proper, but not the rest of the city? Well, that was easy because in Virginia, nobody wanted to carjack a car because it was fairly likely the person driving the car was going to shoot you.
I'm a big believer in FAFO without saying the acronym, but yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So how badly have we seen our Second Amendment rights eroded in Colorado?
Well, I can tell you, when I moved here, and back when I moved here, it was a split legislature. We had a Republican Senate and we had a Democrat House. Okay. I moved here because of the issues that were going on in the South, in Texas, and especially in the border region. What made my final decision was there was a human trafficking ring in the city I lived in, Corpus Christi at the time. I was a firearms instructor out there for many years and a realtor and investor. We had a human trafficking ring broken up of 32 underage girls. Most of them were under the age of 16. There was a huge gang problem going on in the schools there, mostly with illegals, mostly with people that shouldn't be in this country in the first place and who were related or affiliated to the cartel. I didn't want to raise my children in that environment. So I did a lot of research. I've been visiting Colorado for years, especially Colorado Springs. And at that point, when I decided to make the move out here, it was the second best city, or the third, depending on which ranking system you go by, to live in. It was ranked the most conservative city in the United States, and was ranked the evangelical capital of the United States, which all met with my values. Plus just the beauty of the mountains and all the things I do, like mountain biking and skiing and things of that nature, just aligned with what I wanted my lifestyle to be for myself and my children.
So about what year was this when you moved here?
So that would have been back in 2000 and either 16 or 17. I'll have to look.
That's right. And back then, yes, we were always up in the top 5 of the
correct
U.S. News and World Report rankings on the best major cities in which to live.
Absolutely, especially for families. And school choice was a huge thing as well because, in Texas, you do not have school choice. It's something I definitely fundamentally believe in. There's also a lot of charter schools out here, which is great. And homeschooling is hugely supported in Colorado, all things that I stand for. So there was a number of factors that went into this decision out here. But I can tell you, since I've been here, I've seen the legislature change hands to complete Democrat control. And at this point, we've had nearly 8 years of complete Democrat control. And Colorado now ranks last in nearly every single metric imaginable.
Every economic and cultural indicator that you can come up with, we are a joke. We're an embarrassment.
Agreed. But
relative to the rest of the country.
I got to say, it's disappointing, and sorry about that, but it's disappointing to see so many people fleeing the state. I mean, I'm a Texan. We have the Alamo. Colorado's my Alamo. I'm standing my ground. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for the people of this state.
But you have to sometimes long for living in in Texas again.
Honestly,
not California.
Honestly, I look at Colorado and I think of it as so much potential, so much squandered potential. I see the potential in this state. I'm not running anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay and fight. I'm going to fight for what used to be Americana. When you leave and go out of the country to any other country, even when I go on my travels to Japan, England, or any of these places I go, when you tell them you're from Colorado, they're like, where's that? And they know it's America. But then you tell them some of the things. You tell them about the Royal Gorge. You tell them about Doc Holliday. You tell them about all these things, and they get this picture. The things that they think of when they think America is Colorado.
Yeah.
We can't let this state go.
I was in Armenia not long ago, within the last 2 months, with my wife. I remember sitting in a bar in a hotel. It never closed. It was open all night. Mm-hmm. But we were leaving to come back to Denver through Frankfurt, through the big hub there that is for Lufthansa. And so it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. We're waiting for our ride to the airport, and this guy walks in. He's a Russian guy, and walks in from out of the blue. We're sitting at the bar waiting for our ride, and he just decides to buy everyone a drink. He insists on it. It was some kind of very high-end liqueur.
Sure.
And he was from Russia, and he asked where we were from, and we said, we're from Colorado. And he said, what is Colorado? He didn't even know where it was.
Sure.
And
it's the very middle of the state, of the country.
I didn't know that there were people who didn't know what Colorado was.
Sure.
But this Russian fella, and he seemed rather sophisticated. And then he asked us if there were, what the population of Colorado was. And I said about 6 million.
Yep.
And he was kind of surprised by that. And then he said, are there big cities there? And I said, well, there's one, at least, fairly.
Denver, yeah.
Denver is a major city by any world standard. And he said, Denver. He had not heard of Denver.
Wow.
I was really kind of shocked by that.
It is surprising when you leave the country. I mean, everybody knows certain states, right? Like you say Texas and people know that. You say California and people know that. But Colorado doesn't get the attention it deserves sometimes. And when you really do think of the picturesque moments of the United States and what people think about when they think of the United States, it is Colorado. It's the Rocky Mountains. It's Purple Mountain Majesties.
Nobody, if you go out throughout the United States, or if you simply watch television,
sure,
you don't get the sense that the rest of the country realizes how much of a disaster Colorado has become. They're always in Seattle or Portland or now Minneapolis
The loudest people in the room get the most attention, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we see. And in Colorado, I was just up at the Capitol yesterday with a bunch of advocates fighting against 004, the expansion to red flag bill that they unfortunately did pass through the first hearing, but we have some plans to try to kill that bill, which we'll talk about later. But point being is there's a lot of activists involved out here. We just don't get the attention in Colorado that we should get from the national press, from the media, of things that are going on, and we should. And I get asked all the time, especially to friends that I have around the country in the Second Amendment movement, why should I care about Colorado? Why does Colorado matter to me? Why should I spend my resources and time there? And I tell them all the time, because what's happening in Colorado will be in your state soon. We saw this in Virginia. You just mentioned Virginia a little bit ago.
Yeah.
003, the semi-automatic ban, passed last year here in the state of Colorado. Virginia just introduced a bill almost identical, a carbon copy of what we've done here in Colorado.
Few people in Colorado are actually from Colorado. This is a transient state. People move here from somewhere else.
Well, America itself is a melting pot. We all came here. All of our ancestors came here from somewhere else too, right?
Correct. But a lot of states, you go out to the East Coast and you have Aunt Millie, who's been in, New Jersey, just down the block, and her families have been there for generations. New York, Philadelphia, a lot of other places. Here, almost everybody's first generation Coloradan. It used to be you'd see the handful of natives running around with these stickers that said native. You don't see that very often anymore because there aren't even enough of them that you would notice.
Well, we need to take our state back. We need good conservative values. If anything, we need to be advertising in states like Texas and states like, the conservative states like Florida, places like that, and bring the good people here to outweigh these Californians and Illinois people that are moving out here and destroying our state.
Well, and that's what they do. They come in here and they can achieve great political milestones. Classic example, this was the first state to fully legalize recreational marijuana. Then that turned into the legislature decriminalizing every hard drug. I never thought I'd see the day that there would be a state, that there would be a jurisdiction on the globe that would want to decriminalize fentanyl.
That's
or
insane.
Heroin. And we've done that. And so then we do this stuff. Not only does it spread to other states, because they could call it the Colorado blueprint. You learn it in Colorado and then you take it somewhere else.
Sure, we see that all over the country.
When you do that, you make this, if you are a cartel leader or you are any kind of a drug dealer, whether individual or organized, this is the place you want to be. We're so soft on crime, particularly drug crime, but many others, that we end up now, instead of the top list of the top places to live,
we're one of the worst.
Within a decade, we have become the second most dangerous state in which to be.
It's insane. I've seen that transition happen. It's one of the reasons I'm running. I can give you a personal story about how soft we are on crime. We talked about my store. I did have a break-in about 1.5 years ago at my store. So from what I understand, I don't have all the details because they were minors involved in this. There was 3 minors and 1 adult. The adult was the driver and 3 minors were the actors. They use minors on purpose because in Colorado, a lot of people don't realize we have 235 juvenile beds for the population of 6 million people. What does that mean? When a minor commits a crime, even if it's murder, even if they destroy someone's life or livelihood, they have to pretty much let them out. They have to make the decisions because there's a lot more than 235 juvenile offenders. I can assure you of that.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I'm all for rehabilitation, but especially when it comes to juveniles, they're having to make the choice between, okay, this was attempted murder versus murder. Okay, this person committed first-degree murder versus second-degree murder. They're having to decide who to keep in jail and who to let out on house arrest and or probation.
And most are let out.
And they are. In my situation, these individuals were in jail for less than a week. Okay, they got bonded out and they couldn't keep them. So what did they do? They gave them 1 or 2 years of probation and they gave them 100 hours of community service. That was their thing. And they caused 6 figures in damage and 5 figures in theft, more damage than they did theft. And also they stole some poor college kid's car who did not have insurance and destroyed his means of transportation. There was multiple victims, including my employees, including my family, my livelihood, the people that I associate with, and the person that they stole their vehicle. And I also was told that these people were illegally in the United States at the time. This happened under the end of the Biden administration. I mean, if it had been under Trump, maybe they would have not been our problem anymore.
Too many examples of let's make Colorado a place that's soft on crime because you get these leftists in there who've been indoctrinated in their universities that the criminal is actually the victim of an unfair society. And the criminal can and should be rehabilitated, not treated like an animal and put in a cage. And so you've got that sort of mind virus all throughout
I agree.
Colorado.
So I saw this firsthand. Do you know Representative Bacon?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things during the last legislative session that they were trying to pass was to increase criminal penalties on someone that commits a repeat offense multiple times and to put it into a felony versus a misdemeanor. And we're talking about high dollar offense. This isn't their first offense. It's like 3 or 4 times the offense is increased to a felony. And here's one of the crazy things. One of the arguments that she made on that panel, and this is recorded, it's in the record, is that this law would disproportionately affect minority communities. I don't know if I've ever heard something more racist in my life.
I've pointed this out many, many times. How many laws, doesn't matter what it pertains to, but almost always when you're reducing the level of punishment for a crime, it almost always says that it has this, and if we don't do this, we have this disproportionately negative effect on minorities and the poor. They usually use the term people of color.
Yeah.
Now, who are
But that's racist. Are we assuming that people of color commit more crimes than whites? I mean, that's what I'm saying. From their own ideology, they're kind of making their own hypocritical case. If that makes sense.
It's incredible. It's an incredibly racist assumption, and the fact of the matter is, and this is you can't prove me wrong. Any jurisdiction anywhere USA, the vast majority of crime victims are themselves people of color. So if you're so concerned about people of color, the last thing you want to do is make it easy for drug dealers to come in here and prey on the children of people of color.
Agreed. And this brings me back to the Second Amendment, because who do these gun control bills hurt the most? Or these laws? They hurt people in minority communities. They hurt people in urban environments. They hurt people in impoverished situation, because those are the communities that are not served by law enforcement at the level that wealthier ivory tower liberal communities are. I'll put it that way.
And when you put up all, as we did just recently, by making it much more difficult to get a concealed carry permit
or to purchase a gun in general.
Or to purchase a gun in general. It's the people of color and the low-income people that they can't afford to jump through those hoops.
That's right.
They're the ones who need that the most, and they're the ones who can least afford to jump through those types of hoops.
A right a delayed, a right charged, and a right denied is a right denied, I should say. Sorry.
Yes, exactly. Getting back to Senate Bill 4, the expansion of this red flag. Red flag, for those who don't understand, is where you know of a person who is not well and likely to be danger to himself, herself, or others. These kind of laws make it easier for you to get a gun away from, say, crazy Uncle Charlie, who's threatened to kill himself 3 times in the last 3 Thanksgiving dinners and whatever the case may be. So the philosophy behind it isn't terrible. You want guns in the hands of stable, law-abiding people, and you don't want guns in the hands of people who might do harm with them.
The question is who decides that?
Yes.
And then also, I just want to point out a few problems with red flags, if that's okay.
Yes.
One of the biggest problems in the state of Colorado is, one, it's a civil action, not a criminal action. What does that mean? So in a criminal action, when you have a criminal case against an individual, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil action, it's the preponderance of evidence, which means a simple majority of a jury and or likelihood without beyond a reasonable doubt. So how this works is someone can report you if they have, and in this situation, there's a specific list of who those people can be. This bill would expand it to medical practitioners and educators. So I'll give you an example. Obviously, I own a gun store. Mm-hmm. I have the tactical Tesla. People have seen it online. They've seen it running around. It's a lifted Tesla that's wrapped in camo with guns all over it and a brush guard. And
we'll need a picture of that. We'll put a picture up for everyone to see that.
Yeah, it says "saving gas for guns" on the back, because I believe in that. We should be saving gas for ammo and guns. But but moving on. Point being is, everybody at my children's school know what I do, know who I am. If one teacher has a political disagreement with me, or my child even acts up in any way, they could red flag me under this new proposed bill. And here's the crazy thing about it. 1, the person who reports you can hide behind the institution. The institution is listed, but not the person who reported you. That goes against your right to face your accuser in the United States. This also goes
It
against...
also means your child's third grade teacher, you can show up for parent-teacher conference and she can just be the sweetest, or he can be
Sure.
sweet.
Sure.
You know, just act like we're all friends here,
Sure.
and then turn around and stab you in the back, and
Agreed.
without any concern that you'll ever know.
Well, they're also incentivized to do that. So last year, the legislature passed a law in which if schools do not report something that may be considered a viable threat in some way, they could be held civilly liable and be sued for large amounts of money. So what this does in conjunction with the red flag bill is it makes it where teachers are going to be overly cautious, and they're going to report on things even if it's the most minor infraction, because if the school gets sued, they could lose hundreds of millions of dollars and go bankrupt. An entire school district can go bankrupt overnight. But the other problem is due process. It removes the right to due process. We take the guns first, and then we sort out the process later. It happens in a civil court. You do not have the right to an attorney. You have to provide your own attorney at your own cost to get your guns back, and these guns have to be stored somewhere. Who do you think is going to float the cost of that storage fee?
You, the person who's been red flagged.
Correct.
Yes.
The financial burden's there. And here's the biggest thing that's a detractor from this stuff. There is no penalty for false reporting. That means a person can go out and make a false report, and they will not be charged with a crime, and there is no civil liability for doing so. And their identity is protected. That's unacceptable. You have the right to face your accuser in this country, and if someone makes a false report against you, you should have the right to sue them.
Let me give you a classic example of someone who needs to own a firearm and know how to use it.
Sure.
Is a woman who is the victim of domestic abuse. She has
100%.
a former boyfriend, an ex-husband, whatever the case
Preach.
may be. This goes on every day in every state, USA. And this person shows up drunk at 2:00 in the morning, frequently yelling
Yeah.
and threatening danger toward the person and the children. If that person, seriously, you can't, in a lot of locations, you can't get the cops to show up there once within 10 minutes, let alone every time it happens.
Average police response time nationally is 15 minutes. If you're where I live, it's probably about 45 minutes to an hour. In my store break-in situation, it was over an hour for them to respond to a gun store break-in.
So a lot of people, it's up to them to have some sort of a means of protecting themselves against this type of, and so what that person, then the person who is causing the harm, the drunken abuser, doesn't want the victim to have that level of protection. He doesn't want to get shot if he shows up at 2 a.m. threatening.
Hell, they could file a false red flag on him.
They can file a red flag.
Yeah, I always have to say this. I encourage everyone to go out and get trained in firearms, to exercise their Second Amendment right. Because at the end of the day, you can't carry a cop on your back, but you can sure as hell carry a firearm on your side. And you should. Especially in the conservative movement, in the time of Charlie Kirk, we have to be able to arm ourselves. We have to be able to protect ourselves. It's unacceptable what's going on in this country and the political violence.
U.S. News and World Report is the king of lists.
Yeah.
Nobody disputes that they don't do their research. They do their due diligence. And this is now the second most dangerous state in the country in terms of crime because of all of this bad legislation over the past decade. Now, when I moved here 30...
By the way, our use of force laws in Colorado are kind of in the middle of the country. You go to other states, the use of force is much more structured towards the right to stand your ground, the right to protect yourself, your livelihood, your property even. Now, I always tell people that property is not worth killing somebody over, but your life, your family, your loved ones, that is. You got to do what you got to do to survive and to protect your loved ones. But we're kind of in the middle. There's actually some, especially when it comes to civil liability and shootings, and people need to be aware of that. But that's a topic for a different day.
Did you make any ground in arguing against SB 004?
So we did. And the important thing that people need to know, and I get asked this all the time, why should I show up and testify? They're not going to listen to me. And that's the truth the majority of the time. But here's the thing. If we don't show up and testify against these bills, if we do not show opposition, what else do you think they're going to put in the pipeline? I got to tell you, I found out yesterday they introduced a bill to regulate the sale and transfer of barrels in Colorado, to make it where it would be the same process as transferring a firearm or purchasing a firearm to purchase a barrel. That's what we're going through. There's a lot more bad things coming in the pipeline. If we do not show up and fight back and show them that every single inch that they're trying to gain on our rights is going to be a fight to the death, a battle for our lives, then they're going to pass whatever they want. We have to show up. We have to be active. And for those people that can't make it down to the Capitol, I'm going to tell you, you can zoom in. There's no excuse. You should zoom in. You should testify. You should let them know how you feel respectfully, and you should make sure that they see that there is an opposition. Written testimony does nothing. Showing up in person and testifying and zooming in, that actually accomplishes something. Written testimony, useless. They enter it into the record. No one ever looks at it. They don't care what you have to say. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything to impede time. And why do I say time? Time is important in the legislature. They have 130 some odd days that they meet every year. I think it's close to 150 if I remember correct. I'll have to look up the exact amount. But they meet for that amount of days. And if the time runs out, then the bill's dead and they have to reintroduce it the next year and try again. This is an important tactic that we have been using in the minority, is making them pick and choose their bill and costing them time through testimony. Now, yes, they can limit the overall testimony time to a day or so, but if we can kill a single legislative day by stopping the cogs of government, by slowing it down, it makes them have to really pick and choose what battles are they going to fight, what bills are they going to pass, what's important to their actual constituents and not just their social agenda.
As ridiculous as some of the gun bills are in Colorado that have contributed to making this state a very dangerous place.
Sure.
Last year, we had what became known, at least throughout Colorado, as a dead naming bill. Now, this ties into the fact that there is a flourishing, what I like to call gender transition industrial complex in Colorado, where you've got a certain number, most doctors, most people who can get an MD or a DO behind their name are very special people. They're intelligent. They're generally good people. But of course, as with all demographics, you have your outliers. Those outlier numbers can be fairly large in something as large as the medical profession. So you've got this group of quacks.
Agreed.
Who have decided that,
especially those that were educated by left-wing liberal Ivy League schools like Harvard or places of that nature. You see this a lot with them. They get that ideology indoctrinated into them in those schools.
Teaching ideology is just more fun than teaching actual facts and
science.
Yeah, you get this community of quacks who decide that their specialty is in late-term abortion. Now there's these groups who think their specialty should be to help children, and not just
mutilate
a minority of children, but a lot of children, by telling them that they were born into the wrong body. If you're not comfortable in your body when you're 10 or 11 years old, which I don't know of a 10 or 11-year-old who's comfortable with who they are.
Sure.
That's a hard time to be alive for very many reasons. You get picked on, maybe you're a tomboy, whatever the case may be. Well, they work with the schools. The schools have these after-school programs that indoctrinate children to think that they were somehow born into the wrong body. Nobody's the wrong gender. In fact, that would be created into the wrong gender.
Yeah.
You're a mistake. Now, that is a terrible thing to tell a young person, that you're a mistake.
I'd agree.
That God, or if you don't believe in God, whatever creates life, made a mistake with you.
Yeah.
And we need to fix that for you. It will be very expensive, but insurance will cover most of it. We've got these gender mutilations going on, and it literally is a for-profit industry in Colorado and many other blue states.
I would just go to say, since when do we allow minors and children who have not fully developed and their mentality as an adult, when do we allow them to make life-altering decisions that could affect them for the rest of their life? Don't get me wrong. Adults are adults. Let them do what they want to do. That's freedom. That's liberty. Don't take away my freedom of speech, number one. The First Amendment is just as important as the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment does protect the First. Without it, we wouldn't have a First. But don't force me to say something or do something or call someone something. Don't force me to lie, I would say, or go against my beliefs. That's number one. But number two, why are we letting children make these decisions?
I don't like tattoos, and I have a number of adult children who love tattoos.
Well, you can't even get a tattoo unless you're an adult, but we're going to let them go through gender mutilation.
And I don't mind when my adult children get a tattoo. I don't like the swastika symbol. I don't like that.
Understood.
Now, if I don't like tattoos and I don't like swastikas, and a 15-year-old child comes up to me who I'm responsible says I'm going to get a swastika tattooed on my forehead, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. And if it does, somebody's going to pay a legal consequence for having done that.
Well, it comes back to parental rights, correct? We're supposed to raise our children. We're supposed to be the influential member in their life for their future, and that's being taken away from us here in Colorado.
The far left legislature decides to further sort of subsidize and ease the way for this weirdness that's going on, this radical medical practice. If my child changes his or her name because my child has decided that he or she was created wrong, is a mistake, and I used the wrong name. This is last year's bill.
Yeah, the dead naming bill.
Yeah, the dead naming bill. Then in a court proceeding, in a divorce or a child custody dispute of any kind, I'm going to lose the child if I'm the one who won't use the new name.
Correct.
Even if it's a mistake, because it didn't address that in the bill.
Correct. It could have been just habit, right?
Yeah,
it could have been something that that's what you've done your entire life with your son or your daughter, you know?
Exactly. It's very difficult to just all of a sudden start, whether adult or child or whatever, it's difficult to remember you're not John anymore, you're Sue. Okay.
Agreed.
So that was a radical bill that got passed. Now they want more.
They want more. They want stricter penalties too.
Yeah, so we've got another dead naming bill this year, and you get the title. The title is Legal Protections for Dignity of Minors.
Gotta love the names of these legislative bills.
This is for the dignity of the poor 8-year-old who has been told he or she is a mistake.
What has happened in this country and in this state? It's I don't know. Sorry.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't see how any rational person can see this as something other than child abuse.
I would
Beginning
agree
with
that.
the minute that you tell the child that you're a mistake.
Yeah.
And so here we have.
Well, can I tell you, when I was in high school, when I was in school, this wasn't an issue. Yes, we had people who were gay in school and things of that nature, but the trans thing, if you look at the numbers, and I don't have those exact numbers on me, but you can look at the numbers. This has only become a thing in about the past decade. And I think it's because of Hollywood, and I think it's because of promotion, and I feel like it's because of brainwashing and the education in our school system. They're making this into a thing when it shouldn't be a thing.
That, and I agree completely. And it all plays right into the whole demonization of the majority as well.
Absolutely.
The majority, the white male, is inherently evil. So you don't want to be, a lot of children having been through several grades of elementary school realize that they
can't just be white. They have to be something different.
I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
I was created
White
as
guilt.
a white male.
Yeah.
Or a white female, whatever. So this is a way to decide to instantly become something unique and different and to be celebrated.
I agree. You see this in Hollywood too, with all the Hollywood actors that are like, "Oh, I have a trans child." You know, you see this all the time, and that's child abuse. It's child abuse. And I'll tell you right now, as far as the race politics are concerned, I get asked all the time, "What's my race?" People are curious, and you know what I tell them? I'm American. Mm-hmm. I'm a melting pot of this country. I have like the amount of mix that I am is insane. So,
well,
but
right,
I'm
you don't look
American.
you don't look like you don't stand out as a white male. I mean, I don't know whether you are.
I just have a really good suntan. Is what it is. You know?
Well, yeah. So I have no idea, and I don't care.
No. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's right. I like to tell people I'm racially ambiguous, and at the end of the day, I'm an American, and that's all that matters. I care about my country. I care about my family. I care about the place that I was born and raised and the place that my ancestors were born and raised here in the United States.
Yeah, and I never fill out that part on applications for anything, loans.
Oh, I like to mix it up, just change it up and keep them on their toes.
Just pick one, or it always gives you the option to. I don't.
Yeah, last time on one of my 4473s, I just wrote to the side of it, "Amosexual." That's what I identify as. So
there you go. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they ask those questions gives you there's no other reason that they would ask that. It's either going to help or hurt you to be of one particular race or ethnic identity.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So this thing now comes along, and it's concerning legal protections for the dignity of a minor and in connection therewith, suppressing a court record associated with changing a minor's name and requiring the court to consider as a relevant factor.
So did you say suppressing a court record? So the record would be sealed that it even occurred?
Even occurred. So this is really confusing because you're punished if you don't use the new name, yet this is allowing the court to prevent you from even knowing that your child went and legally changed her name.
I got to say, I think we're one of the only countries attempting to do this type of stuff and doing this stuff. When I go overseas to other countries, there's two options, male, female. That's it. That's it.
Right.
And sex and gender are usually defined as whether you produce one thing or another, whether it's eggs or the alternative. So you see that a lot in other countries, but here in the United States, it's getting insanity. It's getting insane. We're going against science. And we're just making stuff up as we go. It doesn't make any sense.
You mentioned you've traveled different places in the world.
All over the world.
And I have traveled I wouldn't say all over the world, but quite a few places.
Sure.
And not long ago was in Africa, was in Nigeria particularly, and rural Nigeria mostly. Yeah. You look at humanity there, and you look at the children gathered around a well, waiting their turn to haul a bucket of water home. And you look at the way people live there, and to think that anyone in that circumstance would have the luxury to worry about whether God created me as a mistake or, I should have created me as something else is ridiculous. That is such a, I
agree.
That is such a white American privileged concern. Talk about a first world concern.
Agreed.
And this legislature just can't get enough of it. Are you going to take on the dead naming bill this year as well? I know you're busy with the...
Absolutely. If it's on, I'll be there. If not, I will be there remotely. I will do whatever I can. So I plan to testify every single week and every single day that I can up there at the Capitol. But of course, I still have to campaign as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So Senate Bill 3, this is a bill from last year, takes effect August 1st.
Yeah,
so it's coming
SB
right up.
25-003, the semi-automatic ban in Colorado.
So coming this summer, regardless of what the legislature does now, the damage is done, it's been signed into law.
Correct.
It's going to become very difficult to purchase a firearm in Colorado.
Yeah, so I also serve as the vice president for the Colorado State Shooting Association. We do have a lawsuit on SB 003 right now.
When Colorado passed Senate Bill 003, the sweeping permit to purchase semi-automatic firearm scheme, we at CSSA knew we could not wait. That is why we are filing a lawsuit today.
Actually in federal court pending, and we are hoping for good results. We have 14 plaintiffs. We have sued Governor Polis directly. I mean, we have plaintiffs that are claiming civil rights violations. We have a gay Lebanese Jew plaintiff that we're going after this with. We're using some of the left zone ammunition against him. We have a disabled veteran who was the only disabled vet to ever re-enlist in the military, who was 100% disabled, who cannot use a firearm that is not a pistol brace semi-automatic. This violates his rights. It is not ADA compliant. And I'll tell you, 003, we attempted to introduce a number of amendments, including for protective orders for women that had protective orders against a stalker. They would not pass these amendments. They would put no exceptions to this bill. And it's insane the amount of hoops that people are going to have to jump through come August in order to exercise their constitutional right and purchase a magazine-fed semi-automatic, which, by the way, makes up 90% or more of the firearm market.
I think it's great that pro-Second Amendment people are finally getting the argument right.
Correct.
In that they're walking in and saying, look.
We're not just making the constitutional argument. We're going beyond that and using the tactics that the left uses against us, against them.
Because the way that this battle used to be fought by people who owned gun stores or shooting ranges or were avid hunters, you'd go to the legislature or to the city hall, wherever the battle was being fought at the time. I lived in Boulder for 17 years.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was difficult. There were always gun bills coming up to the city council.
Yeah, they have more strict gun laws than Colorado does. They have individual city laws which are being challenged in federal court right now.
Yes, exactly. And every time they turned around, they tried to do something to restrict the rights of gun owners. And every single time I would go to watch the proceedings, there would be the average person, the typical person who was testifying against the restriction on the gun.
Sure.
Was 6 foot, maybe 6'4", dressed in camouflage. And
not the right look to get your point across. Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking, why are we doing that? Why isn't it the
people that they tend to care about? We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Why don't we have the single mother of 3 children with the abusive boyfriend?
Absolutely.
The minority single mother or why don't we have the Jew who
Agreed.
I
who's being targeted?
who's targeted,
Yeah.
or the LGBTQ person who's being targeted.
You're correct. And you see that, I mean, there are organizations out there like the Pink Pistols, for example, in the LGBTQ, and they've been getting heavily involved. So we're starting to see that change. And it's good. It's good to do that because at the end of the day, the Second Amendment is for everyone, no matter what your political beliefs are. It's for every single American, every single red-blooded American out there. And it's important that they show up and have their voices heard too, because these laws, they protect the minority. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to protect disaffected and smaller groups of people.
Exactly. A guy like you and a guy or me, we can walk down the street with relative safety, any city, USA, and we're not that vulnerable.
Agreed.
But if one of us is
My
80 years old and in a wheelchair.
5 foot short woman, 7 months pregnant. She's at way more danger than I am.
Right.
know?
Exactly. And the elderly are at way more danger. Crimes against the elderly are spiking big time because they're easy targets.
Agreed. I will say this, though. You definitely don't want to target my wife. She's a better shot than me, and she carries heavier munitions than I do. So,
yeah. And that's as it should be.
Absolutely.
Yes. Balance of power is maintained that
that's
way.
Right. The gun is the equalizer.
That's right. You're a member of the CSSA.
Correct.
And
Vice President of Industry.
Apparently, you have a banquet coming up in February, correct?
We do. February 28th, we're going to be throwing a huge banquet down at the Marriott in the Denver Technology Center. It's going to be a huge fundraiser. We have a lot of different auction items, raffle items, and silent auction items we're going to have there. And also, we were lucky to secure Grantham, the biggest 2A influencer in the world. He will actually be coming to that event, be one of our keynote speakers. We'll have numerous amount of politicians from not just the state of Colorado, from around the country, coming out there to talk about the issues that matter most to the liberty movement here in Colorado.
Great. And how do people sign up and go to the banquet? Where can they find information?
We are putting that information out this week. We should see it in the next day or so. And we will have like an event hub type thing where you can go and get your tickets online.
Okay.
Absolutely. It'll be posted on the Colorado State Shooting Association's website, CSSA.org.
And I want to encourage people from all backgrounds, all walks of life to sign up for this thing. What we do not need, again, it is another banquet in Colorado of large camouflaged white men defending gun rights for themselves, which is fine, and for everyone else. No, that shouldn't be it should be the people who need guns the most. We need more of those people there. We need more minorities.
I would say
there.
This is open to everybody. The Second Amendment is for everyone, whether you're a white man in camo or whether you're the 5'2" Latina lady. It doesn't matter.
And that's how
everybody should be there.
Make this country a great, safe melting pot for anyone who wants to live here. Especially in a crime-ridden environment like Colorado. I never thought I'd be saying that because, like I say, when we moved here in '93, and that my wife is a Colorado native, so we moved back here in '93, crime was an afterthought. It wasn't something that happened in Colorado.
No, it used to be very state safe. Under Polis, the state has gone to, forgive my French, but hell.
Yeah.
He's turned it into a hellscape. Yeah.
Never have gun rights been more important, and never have they been more jeopardized.
Yeah. Agreed.
Than right now. So It's a real double-edged sword.
I will also just throw a little promotion out there for CSSA. If you haven't been to the CSSA.org store, you should go check it out. We've got some pretty awesome mugs and shirts with, Polis for prison, or Polis is the best guns, or Polis #1 gun salesman, things like that.
Anything else you want to talk about that you would like to accomplish
when
you're elected, in the likely event that you are elected to represent ST4?
So I'll list off a few reasons why I'm running. I mentioned that I own one of the largest family-owned and operated gun stores in the state, so I'm a stakeholder in that. I have 2 daughters, 6 and 8. In fact, one of the deciding reasons I just announced 2 weeks ago, and one of the deciding factors that put me over that line, other than just Charlie Kirk, of course, that's what got me considering it, was my daughters had a threat to their school. They had a threat in which they actually canceled school for 3 days, and I've had my daughters out since because I'm worried for their safety. That school does not have an armed guard. There are 400 elementary school children at that school and not a single armed guard. In fact, they do have a guard, but they are unarmed, and they are shared between the 6 schools in that district. That's unacceptable. Everything that we have in life that we hold dear, we protect with firearms, or we protect with security, whether it be a bank, our money, our assets. Hell, even the postal office in urban areas generally have an armed guard, or federal buildings and courthouses.
Try going to a concert or a
That's
major
right.
league sporting event.
That's right.
Or a minor league sporting event.
Why not our schools? Why are we not investing in the future of this country, our youth, our legacy, what we're leaving behind? It's disgusting.
It is absolutely disgusting, and I have never been able to reconcile that. And I'm a fiscal conservative.
Sure.
Trust me.
Sure.
I say, damn the money. Spend whatever you need
So
on that.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Take it from
Agreed.
somewhere else.
Hell, I mean, all these taxes they're collecting on excise tax and things like that. I disagree with it. When that they're collecting it on guns, I fought against it. But if we are going to be putting that money anywhere, why aren't we putting it into school security?
And we're not.
And we're not.
And almost, look, we're sitting here in a nice little mountain village, I
Sure,
call it.
sure.
Chateau. And yeah, that's right. Twice in the last month, we've had threats to every school. They didn't even specify what
Which school it
so
was.
they have to shut them all down.
I'm in this school district. So yeah.
You're in this district, so you
this
get
is
it.
my
You've been
district.
there. You've been here. Yeah. So, and nothing changes. Get this too. We talk about soft on crime. In this town that I live in, about a year and a half ago, somebody in a McDonald's driveway got into some sort of conflict
Sure.
in the drive-through.
Sure, they didn't get the cheese on their burger or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but ended up running over a person.
God.
Running over a person. That area where you wait when they say go park it. And then you run over a person and was dragging the person and kept dragging the person, knowing he was dragging this person.
Yeah,
until she died.
They probably gave him 2 weeks community service, I'm sure.
Well, I don't even think that, because we have a new law that was passed out of the 24 legislature
Sure.
that kicked in 25, August of 25, that said if you are determined unfit for trial, you can no
Yes.
longer even
And
be
they've
charged.
They've let some people out from that rule as well that
This
have gone out
guy-
and committed murder or have done horrible things.
This guy is among them.
Yes.
He was determined because he got hit in the head when he was a child many years ago.
Sure. So another
And he-
psychologically disabled person.
And
Yeah.
he knew the law well enough, too, that he knew that he could use that to make himself appear unfit for trial. And all you got to do is get some psychotherapist, to say that. So he's running around free. We have murderers, many other examples in Colorado of people who we know they just killed someone and they're running around free. So somebody could go shoot up a school anywhere in Colorado
This is
and
what we have
not
to
even
change.
face prosecution.
This is what we have to change, and it's another reason we're too soft on crime in Colorado. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying lock them all up, but I am saying that our process is broken, and the laws that have been passed in this state have incentivized crime and incentivized people to do horrendous acts, knowing that there will not be consequence. That's unacceptable.
Completely unacceptable. So what we really have to do when it comes to children, because children should not be the victims of crime anywhere. We need to prevent the crime from happening, and that goes right to what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Don't let it happen.
And I'll also tell you, as a father of 2 daughters, I'm worried about their opportunities for college scholarships because of boys and girls sports. I'm worried about boys going into their locker rooms. I'm worried. I mean, look, one of the districts I represent, or one of the counties I represent, would be Jeffco, rural Jeffco. The Jeffco school system has had a huge amount of sexual abuse of minors in that school district, and even from students as well as teachers. And there's no reporting really of it. There's no record kept on the student or the teacher who commits this. Believe it or not, there's not a registry for that. There should be. Mark Baisley is actually the senator that I'm looking to step into his shoes here, who's endorsed me. He's actually looking to fix that. He has a bill currently, and I'll get you guys the bill number, but it's something we need to keep an eye on, because it's a very important bill for us to back, so that we can keep predators out of schools, and so that we can make sure our children are safe when we leave them for that 6 to 8 hours a day for outside of our household, to make sure that they're protected and safe. A lot of people don't realize about Colorado too, and my district is huge. So it's one of the biggest districts in the state of Colorado, 8 counties, like I was saying. Cripple Creek is part of that district, which is huge resource town. You're talking gold mine, you're talking silver mine. The amount of natural resources in Colorado are huge, but the amount of red tape that goes into actually harvesting these resources is massive. We used to be the 4th largest producer of crude in Colorado. A lot of people don't realize that we have some of the biggest natural gas and oil reserves in the entire country. There is a way for us to do this responsibly without destroying our state, but we need to unleash our energy independence in the state of Colorado.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that, look at what they're trying to do. They're trying to ban natural gas. They're trying to ban gas in your homes. in your appliances. It's insane. They're going to raise the energy costs. And who does that affect? It affects the poorest people in our communities. Because in the winter, if you don't have heat, you're going to die. You're going to freeze to death.
You are completely talking my language, because I've actually I went to Pueblo a couple of years ago to talk to a nun, liberal nun.
Sure.
But she runs a charity where they help people who can't pay their bills.
Absolutely.
Keep the lights on.
It's a
keep
problem.
the heat on. And, this is someone who would be inclined to be all pro-environment and everything.
Sure.
And oil and gas are evil. But she's seeing people on the streets
freezing to death
because they can't afford all of this green activism.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for renewables too, but
Sure.
that's the offset. It's not a solution right now. We're not there yet as a society.
No, but what a great thing if we can add it, because I'm a supply sider. I think if you want more people to be warm and safe in warm homes with lights on and everything, then you throw supply at it.
Correct.
So
whatever we can do to bring the cost back down, right? The more supply, the more availability, the lower the cost is going to be for the average Coloradan.
So
and
add
this leads
wind
into affordability.
Yes, exactly. Add wind, add solar.
Agreed.
But that doesn't mean you take away your most primary natural gas and coal.
Agreed.
And then you end up with
your bill doubles, triples, quadruples. That's what we end up with.
Right.
Yeah.
You end up with a dearth of the things that people need. Scarcity.
Correct.
And I am so glad that Chris Wright from right here in Colorado is our new energy secretary. I
am too.
I had the pleasure of contractually working with him for a short time.
Really? Okay.
Helping him write some things, editing things he writes. And that man's heart is in the right place. Yes, he owns a major oil company, Liberty Energy.
Sure.
Based on 17th Street in Denver. It's and they work all over the country. Providing fracking services.
Again, it comes down to being responsible, though, right? Like we can do this, and we can unleash our energy independence as a state. We can be a net supplier to the rest of the country, even, and make money here in Colorado, bring in high-paying jobs. It'll bring down the cost of living, even. But we're not doing it. We've got to fix that.
And Chris Wright is not nobody. If you have to meet Chris Wright to actually believe this, or listen to him speak for a long time, or read one of his books. The fact is, he is more of a social activist than he is an oil and gas profiteer.
Sure.
He's very much worried about the fact that when we leave resources in the ground here in Colorado, when we leave perfectly clean natural gas, particularly
natural
in
gas
the
is
ground,
abundant. It's cheap.
And you can put it in containers and you can ship it off to Africa.
Agreed.
And places.
Agreed. LNG.
Yeah. That don't have an infrastructure where natural gas simply flows to your businesses and your homes. Because when we don't make that available and cheap to countries that are not as developed as ours, let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
People die because they cook with dung, trash,
They do.
Even old disposed of tires.
I've been to India. I'll tell you right now, it's disgusting. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's dirty. There's filth everywhere. The streams, the beautiful river, the Ganges, it's filled with trash and feces and everything else you can imagine. You would never want to get in there, but they actually do their burials there. They actually wash in it because it's a holy river to them. Yeah. And if they actually just had access to these resources that we could unleash, and what would it do for our constituents? What would it do for our Coloradans? Well, it would unleash the potential of the state, high-paying jobs. That's what it'll do.
That's right. And the people who are in favor of keeping it in the ground, they live in Aspen, Cherry Creek.
Well, most of them don't
Boulder.
even really live here at all. They live in California. This is their secondary
private
home.
Jet in here. Yes,
exactly.
That's right. And they take great pride in shutting down the extraction of relatively clean. Even coal is a very clean energy compared to somebody who has to burn an old tire to heat the house.
Agreed.
Night.
And again, there's ways for us to the keyword is responsibly, right? We can harvest these natural resources and be a net producer responsibly. There's a way to do it without destroying our state and destroying the beauty of Colorado. If you're interested in what I'm saying, whether you're my constituent or not, I represent all Coloradans. If you believe in our mission, you believe in the fight, you believe what I'm standing for, what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do, visit my website, collinsforcolorado.com. That's Collins with 2 L's, 4 spelled out, colorado.com, and sign up to help us out. We need volunteers. We definitely need donations if we're going to do this and we're going to get through this primary. We're going to have supporters that actually donate, whether whether it's as little as $17.76 or as much as the maximum $450, whatever you're able to do helps our campaign and helps our mission to deliver freedom and liberty for Coloradans.
To that point, I think a lot of donors who are in the middle or are Republicans, center-right Republicans, they don't want to throw good money after bad. They're tired of losing, and they've been losing for a long time.
I'll tell you this, I'm not a loser. I'm a winner.
No, I realize that. I think you're going to be in the Senate, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. And from my perspective,
appreciate
but
that.
we can't be the minority all the time.
No, we can't.
What I'm asking is, there are a number of polls that show that average Coloradans, the great vast number who are just unaffiliated, because like you said, the DMV just makes you unaffiliated unless you declare otherwise.
Yeah.
They are very disaffected with the Democratic Party. Is there any hope that this radical left control that controls every statewide office, both chambers of the legislature, both Senate seats, and most congressional seats?
There is.
There's hope.
There's hope. We are 6 seats away from the Senate. We're expected to pick up 3 to 4 of those at minimum. If the election goes our way and we have a huge turnout, too big to rig, then we will take the Senate. And if we do that, that's a start. That's a big start. That's a huge, huge change in the power and momentum here in the state of Colorado. Also, the House, we're 11 seats away. That's not a lot. We're close. We can do this. We picked up seats in the last election in both the Senate and the House. That means the momentum's on our side. It depends on how this midterm goes. It really does. It depends on what support shows out to vote. It depends on whether we can message to those more independently minded Coloradans that are out there, because that does make up the majority of our population. That being said, I'll also say there's hope as far as registration is concerned, because I was even tricked when I moved here. I moved here from a state that did not have party registration. You voted, and you voted for whichever one you want, and then you showed up for caucus, which was kept private. You didn't have to be a member of the party to do so. You had to do what's called the Texas two-step. But here in Colorado, I was not aware when I first moved here that I would be automatically registered as unaffiliated. As soon as I found that out, I changed that. And that's something that I was unaware of, but I've been involved with the Republican Party since college. I was on the state board of, I was the state recruitment director for the state of Texas College Republicans. I've been out there for quite a while on that. But the point I'm trying to make is that Republican registrations of youth and Republican registrations in general in Colorado are outpacing Democrat registrations right now. What does that tell you?
Tells you there's change.
There's change coming, and that people are fed up. People are upset. They see 8 years of complete Democrat control have destroyed this state, and they're ready to fight back.
And maybe it's not good money after bad.
Agreed. Well, at the end of the day, if you do not even at least attempt to try, it's just like, why do we show up to testify against these bills that we know are probably going to pass? Because we have to resist. Yeah. We have to resist, and we have to support the candidates we know are going to fight for us. And if we don't do it, they say that 10 anti-gun dollars is raised for every 1 pro-gun dollar. I will tell you this, conservatives are much more effective at spending that money than the Democrats are, and that the left are. Sure. But without your donation, don't expect someone else to do it for you. They're not. You have to get involved yourself. You have to donate to candidates like Ava Flanell. You have to donate to candidates like Danielle Lemon, who's running against Tom Sullivan, who we badly need to kick out of office because he's the author of almost all of these anti-liberty and anti-gun bills. We've got to get him out. You have to support these candidates and have hope. Because without hope, we're doomed. There has to be a little bit of optimism.
Well, I have to maintain hope as much as I'd like out of here sometimes because of the political and social climate. I have 6 adult children, mostly adults. One's still at home.
All
6
boys,
adult children, and and I've got 4.
I'm the opposite.
And I have 4 grandbabies, and I want them all to stay here, and I don't want to move away from them. So we have to fix Colorado, and I think electing you is a really good start.
I appreciate that. Well, Colorado is our Alamo. It's our line in the sand. We have to stay and fight. We can't be cowards and run.
Hey, thank you so much for joining me in studio today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
Good luck on the election. Let me know. I'd love to have you on again anytime to talk about anything.
I appreciate that. God bless this great state of Colorado.
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks.
Thank you.